Howdy everybody. Today I'm going to go over what it takes to build a shop here in Tucson, Arizona. The shop is right above my head back there. It took 10 months to build. It's a 30 by 50 with a 12 foot 8-inch ceiling. It ended up, I was just cut to the chase. It was over $200,000 to build that shop. So we'll go over the itemized list of all the things it took to build it. I did some of the work myself. I did some of the painting and a lot of the dirt work. At the end of this video is a time lapse of the build, which is really cool. So if you want to watch it, it's there. I even go back and watch it today because I think it's pretty cool to see the building built. So anyway, so let's do a quick walk around on the outside of it and show you why I chose the colors. It was to match the house. That drove up the cost a little bit, but we'll itemize all those things, and hopefully you'll have a good idea if you decide to build a shop here in Tucson, what the cost is going to be associated with doing that. Okay, here's a different shot where I can get a picture of the garage or the shop and the house. We'll swing around here and you can see that the house now got it so it matches the garage. From this point of view, you can kind of see where the apron is there on the front there to get it level with the elevation of the ground. And then you swing around back here, you can see there's a big drop off, so that'll bring a lot of dirt in. Also, you can see the brick's a little bit different color. I'll bring that up and we'll discuss that. I even requested to get the block from the same lot so the colors would match, but we got a little mismatch there. We'll swing around here to the front and take a look and show you an item that I had to do myself, which I discussed later on in the video. One thing I want to point out here is there's a nice little piece of steel that goes around. So I've got the 8-inch block, and then I got a 4-inch furred out 2x4 wall in there, and that needed to be covered up. And weather stripping right here, it wouldn't cover this far, so I had to put a piece here. And I discussed what they wanted to do, and I ended up just putting that piece of steel up myself. That's a 3/16 by 6-inch piece of flat steel. I drilled it and countersank the holes and stuff. And I did an 1/8-inch piece on the top because it would have been pretty heavy at 3/16. So anyway, all right. Well, here's the front of the building. Hopefully I'm holding the camera halfway steady. And we'll get into a discussion of the breakdown of the costs on this thing. And so you guys have an idea, if you decide to build your own shop, what's going to cost building something like this in Tucson. Alright, here's the back of the building, the shop, and you can see the batch of block that was a different color than some of the rest. It's got actually a little red, a little tan, a little darker brown, a little mix in there. But it happens sometimes. And there's my 400 amp service coming into the shop because I run a lot of welders and plasma cutters and such that require 220. The whole thing on the inside's got a bunch of 50 amp 220 outlets in it. All right, let's take a view of the inside of the garage, and then we'll discuss the costs. All right, let's take a quick look at the inside of the shop / garage. So you can see it's all sheetrocked on the inside, painted. Got one window on it, 12.8 is the height of the ceiling. We've got a couple nice doors on here. And if you look around, you can see we've got a lot of 50 amp 220 plugs. In hindsight, I probably should have did 60 amp, but we'll talk about that. I got them all over the place because I weld and got plasma cutter, and I have 110 all over the place. So anyway, let's get into the cost and all the nuances of building a building here in Tucson. Hi everybody, we're back here. We're going to go over the cost. For itemized cost for building the shop here in Tucson, I don't know if some of you are aware, cost of living is a little higher in Tucson. Real estate's definitely more expensive, but let's go over the cost. So, environmental. When you put something, when you build something on anywhere in Tucson, you got to have a environmental study done. That was $1,700. Basically, we got saguaros and plants that Pima County is, and maybe the state is concerned about. Drafting was $2,770. The engineer was $1,100. The permit to build was nearly $1,000. The land survey was basically just put the points on the lot where the shop is going to be placed. There's a soils. Oh, I'm sorry. Land survey was $765. The soils report was $1,200. The dirt work was $2,800. The dirt and rock that I had hauled in, we'll discuss that later, that was $7,770. Concrete work was $63,500. The brick, the split face, which matches the house, was $41,000. Framing was $37,000. The roof was about $11,000. Insulation, which is insulated in the walls and the roof, and it's all wired up in the roof, that was $4,300. Electrical was $7,750. That's for a 400 amp service, and I got 50 amp outlets, 220 outlets all the way around in the garage for air compressors, plumbing, plasma cutters, welders. Plumbing, I had the water run from the house out to here, which is probably about 250 feet, I'm guessing, or more. So we ran a line out here, and I've got a faucet in the front and the back that was $2,600. Sheetrock was $4,300. The paint, there's two paints. There's a paint for the eave, which was $2,900. We'll talk about that later. And then there's the painting that I did, which I spent $2,450 on paint, and that's the cost of the paint, not painting it. I did the painting myself. Doors and windows were $1,800. Two garage doors, they're 20 by 10s. That was $13,448. They have the side-mounted garage door openers, which are super nice. I can't remember what the gutters were. Eric Perry did those. He did a great job. He's a good guy. It was $2,000. My person that I hired to be the construction manager, he wanted inspections done to make it easier to go through the Pima County approval process. That was about $1,300. I had to pay for the porta potty. So that was over the 10 months it took to build this thing. That was $600. And if you add all those things up, they're going to be around $210,000. So now let's get into the details of why these things cost the way the costs were higher than I think what you're accustomed to. So environmental, $1,700, that was leveraged off when I built the house 12 years ago. You have to mark all the plants, you have to mark all the saguaros, you got to mitigate moving saguaros, those sort of things. That was a little expensive in my book. The drafting was quite a little fiasco there. I paid someone online, I think it was through Upwork, it was supposed to be someone from the United States. Paid him like $500 to do the plans, and they did a good job. And they were correct, because when I built a house, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't correct. So when I built a garage, and how hard can it be to build a garage or shop? Well, anyway, they did a good job, but when my construction manager saw the plans, he said it needed the circuit panel broken out for what circuit went where, and another cover page or something like that. So he wanted to have his own draftsman do that. That ended up being the $2,700 or $2,770 or $2,770 for drafting. So I did not check those plans when they translated them over from the ones that I had drawn up, which were 100% correct. They screwed up all kinds of stuff. They screwed up the height of the building. They screwed up, and not only did they screw up the height of the building, they had contradictory heights. They were off a foot from each other, and then they were off a foot from what it was supposed to be for the height. That caused some issues later on. The engineer at $1,100 I thought was a good price. Land survey, God, I could have went out here and measured where to put the points. It's not that hard. And the soils, there's nothing here in these soils that would negate having problems. All right, so let's talk about that 4-foot drop from the start of the apron out there to the back of the building. I ran the footers all the way down to the ground, and then we had a stem wall, brought that stem wall up 4 foot in the corner, and then we had to bring in a bunch of dirt and pack it in there. So that extra 4 foot in the back that I didn't catch, that we had that much slope on this ground, cost an extra $15,000 with respect to the concrete work, because they had to build that stem wall. Framing was $37,000. They did pretty good. They screwed up the rafters a little bit because I wanted a 6-inch fascia on the front, and it ended up having to be 8 inches because of the plate they put on top of the brick wall to tie the rafters down on. The block. So the bricklayer was given the plans that had the incorrect measurements, so there's some corrections there. And we went back and forth on that a couple times. And I literally had to be out here to catch them to make sure that they got it right. Mechanically, their bricklaying was perfect. They got a batch of bricks in, and I made a point to say, when you get the brick, the block, make sure you get it from the same lot, so it's the same color. And I pointed out when we did the walk around earlier that there's some mismatching there. All right, I could have made them change it, but it's fading out a little bit, but it's a little frustrating. You spend this much money and they can't do those things correctly. But they were good guys. They probably would have, but I didn't want to make them tear down the wall to do it after I caught it. We went over the framing. The roof was $10,800. Okay, so I wanted the same tile on my house, on the garages I had on the house. They never said a word. The tile got delivered, and they didn't match. They were the wrong numbers. It was, can't remember who makes the tile, American something, I can't remember. Anyway, it was different number, so I knew they weren't correct. They were prettier. I actually liked them better than what I had on my house. So I called the guy that was supposed to be doing the roofing. He hired a couple guys to come here to put the stuff on, but he was in charge of it. And he said, well, they don't make those anymore. Well, he could have told me, and then I could have picked out something else that matched. They just picked out whatever the hell they wanted to pick out, which I thought was not cool. So I wanted the number of the place where he got them from. And he said, well, they don't make them. I said, I don't care. I just want to talk to him. So I called him up and they said, no, we don't make those anymore. But if you would have told us a couple months in advance, we could have made a batch for you. Well, I've had so many delays during this 10 months of getting this thing done. I said, put them on there. You can't really tell from the road, but if you take an aerial shot, you can definitely see they're two different color shingles. But the ones on the shop look prettier than the ones on the house. Got the insulation in, it's just bats. I don't have this heater cooled, but if I do, I've got the insulation in there. Electrical was $7,750. I had no idea how expensive copper wire is, but it's very expensive. They did an okay job. They missed an outlet. I put that one in myself after the sheetrock was up, but anyway. Plumbing, those guys did a great job. It was $2,650. They just went above and beyond. We had they used the same trench that we had when we ran the power out here from the transformer, because it's got a separate meter than the house. And because this is 400 amp, and I didn't want to try to make my house 400 amp and then bring it off of there and change all the stuff in the house, because that breaker box is full. So anyway, they used that same trench. They ran the tube out here, or the pipe, plastic tubing, whatever you want to call it, and hooked everything up. They did a great job. Sheetrock was very reasonable. They did a great job. It was $4,300. Paint. So I paid $2,450 for the paint for the sealer on the outside of the block, and I painted the inside of this here. My wife helped me, and another friend that I had that used to be a painter, and he wanted to be part of the action. So, but I am retired, but I go back as a contractor every once in a while. And I was busy at the time, and we needed to paint the eaves before I wanted to get the tile up on the roof. So the construction manager said he got a bid for $1,500. I go, it's kind of high for stupid paint, but okay. Well, he gets out here and he says it's $3,500. I didn't have the time. I should have probably painted it myself. It's 2-foot eve around the building in the fascia. So he wanted $2,900. That I think I got totally screwed on, but I was kind of wanting getting things done, so that lies on my shoulders. I screwed up on that. I couldn't imagine what it would cost to paint the inside of this thing, and they want $2,900 for doing the outside. It's 12 foot up in the air, so I didn't have scaffolding at the time, or you need a scissor jack or something. I didn't have the time to do that, so it is what it is. Doors and window, or I say, just the walk-in door and the window was $1,800 for installation and the doors and stuff. The garage doors, the opening doors, the overhead doors, $13,448. That was expensive, and that was kind of an interesting interaction. For some reason, they said, well, you can't put a regular door on these things. The opening's too big. And I'm going like, well, I got the same things on my house, except for they're just taller. And you don't understand. I go, whatever. And he wanted to put a 2-inch by 6-inch steel tubing around the inside of the door. And I'm going like, okay, just whatever, just get it done. And I started doing some research, and I'm going like, that's going to look stupid. Why would I make an opening of 20 foot and then take 4 inches away from it? And then also on the top, take 2 inches away from that. Anyway, so I asked, why can't I just put like a little 5-inch strip of steel all the way around the door and put it on there? Oh, you can't do that, it's impossible. Well, I did some looking around, and yes, you can. And the bid I got for that was just nuts. I went and bought the iron myself, drilled the holes, countersinked them, put them up there. I showed you on the outside walk around. I put those up myself and painted them. And you can tell if you like the looks of them or not, but I did that myself. I don't really recall what I paid for gutters, but I think it was in the $2,000 range. That was Eric Perry, super great guy. He did the guttering on my house, and he did a great job. We had inspections. I don't know that those were really required, but it made the construction manager's jobs easy, and then porta potties was fine. That was pretty, I think it was like $100 a month or 90 or 80 bucks a month, and that was handy for the workers. So that's the breakdown of the cost. Either in this video, or I'm going to put it as a separate video, is a time lapse of the build of the garage. And I go back and watch it because I just think it's kind of cool. At the beginning, I had a game camera over there, and anytime there was motion, it took a picture. And I had a little bit of a problem at the beginning because it was facing towards the south, and the sun's over there. So we got a little solar flare on the lens at the beginning of the build. But towards the end, I ended up taking a piece of wood and putting it over the top of it to make it look nice, or make the pictures come out better. It's worth watching. All right, so hopefully this was informative to you guys. It is Tucson. Things are expensive here, especially labor. If you're going to do this yourself, if the first thing you do is to get some plans, because no one will bid on anything until you have solid, firm plans or drawings. So get that done and get somebody that you know you can trust and actually does a good job. Take your time finding that person. You can either go with a construction manager or you can go with a contractor. They're going to charge you a lot of money. My construction manager didn't charge me too much, but anyway, a contractor will charge you quite a bit more. They'll charge you at least 10% of the cost of the building, all the way up to 20%, which is very expensive for going and getting a permit and then planning all the people coming here to work on the house. It is important to get good subs, so they know those guys. It just, they drive those nice pickups and live in those big houses because they make a lot of money off of this type of work, because the people that are building stuff, they don't understand the construction side of it. I used to do construction when I was younger. I'm familiar with it. My dad was a contractor, except for back then when you said a contractor, the contractor was the carpenter that built the house. And he used to do the basements, We did all our own rack. We did everything. There's only a few items that we didn't do ourselves, like the electrical and the plumbing. We typically sub that out, but the rest of the stuff we did. We didn't do the bricklaying, but we did all the roof and all that sort of stuff. Contractors today are managers. So just so you know, that's what you're going to pay for. All right, guys, that's it. You want to stay around if it's at the end of this video or I made it as a second video, don't know. Watch that time-lapse build. It's pretty cool. Thanks for watching. I hope this was informative and gave you guys enough information if you decided you wanted to build a garage or shop yourself.